Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiant, watching the stars through the main viewing window. His ship was one of humanity's newest exploration vessels, built for long journeys into unknown space. Jake had been exploring new star systems for 12 years, and he loved his job. Most days were peaceful, scanning planets and looking for signs of life or valuable resources. The Defiant was traveling through the Kepler 442 system, which scientists on Earth thought might have planets suitable for human colonies. Jake's crew, of 45 men and women, worked quietly at their stations, running scans and collecting data. Everything seemed normal until Lieutenant Pete Harris, at the sensor station, called out in a worried voice. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange. On long-range sensors. It looks like a ship, but it's not one of ours." Jake walked over to Pete's station and looked at the display screen. A single dot appeared on the scanner, moving slowly toward their position. The computer showed it was much larger than the Defiant and had a design unlike any human vessel. "How far away is it?" Jake asked. "About 2 million kilometers in closing. At current speed, it will reach us in 30 minutes. Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all his years of exploration, he had never encountered an alien ship. Humanity had found traces of ancient civilizations on dead planets, but never met living aliens. This was the moment every explorer dreamed about and feared at the same time. "Send a message to Luna Command," Jake ordered. "Tell them we have possible first contact with an unknown vessel. Include our position and all sensor data." Commander Lisa Park, the ship's diplomatic officer, joined Jake at the sensor station. Lisa was trained in first contact procedures and spoke 6 human languages. She was also the smartest person Jake knew, and he trusted her judgment completely. "What do we know about their ship?" Lisa asked, studying the sensor readings. "It's big," Pete replied. "About 4 times the size of the Defiant. The hull appears to be made of some kind of metal we don't recognize. And Captain, they're scanning us, just like we're scanning them." Jake nodded. "Lisa, prepare a standard first contact message. Keep it simple and friendly. Mathematics, basic science, peaceful intentions." Lisa sat down at the communications station and began working on the message. The alien ship continued moving toward them, and Jake could see it was indeed massive. Its design was sleek and pointed, like a giant knife cutting through space. Unlike human ships that looked functional and practical, its vessel seemed built to intimidate. 20 minutes later, the alien ship stopped just 50,000 kilometers away. At that distance, Jake could see details of its construction through the telescope. The hull was dark gray with strange symbols carved along its sides. Weapon ports were clearly visible, and Jake counted at least 20 of them. "Message ready, Captain," Lisa announced. "Send it on all frequencies," Jake ordered. The message went out into space, carrying humanity's first words to another intelligent species. It included basic mathematics, atomic structures, and images showing Earth and human beings. The message ended with coordinates for peaceful meeting and expressions of friendship in multiple human languages. They waited for a response. Minutes passed in silence, and Jake began to worry. Maybe the aliens didn't understand the message, or maybe they weren't interested in talking. Then the communications system crackled to life with an incoming signal. The voice that came through the speakers was harsh and cold. It spoke in perfect English, which surprised everyone on the bridge. "Primitive humans of the vessel Defiant. You have entered space claimed by the NIGMA Empire. Your species is unknown to us, but your technology is weak and your ships are small. You will provide all information about your civilization, your military capabilities, and the location of your homeworld. Resistance is not permitted." Jake looked at Lisa, who shook her head with concern. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. The alien's tone was demanding and threatening, nothing like the peaceful meeting humanity had hoped for. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Human Systems. We come in peace and wish to establish friendly relations with your people. Are explorers, not soldiers, and we mean no harm to your empire." The response came quickly and made Jake's blood run cold. "Your peaceful intentions are irrelevant. The NIGMA Empire does not negotiate with inferior species. You will surrender your vessel and submit to questioning, or we will take your ship by force. You have 10 minutes to comply. Pete looked up from his sensor station with fear in his eyes. Captain, they're charging their weapons. Jake knew they were in serious trouble. The Defiant had basic defensive shields and a few small weapons for dealing with space debris, but nothing that could fight a warship. He also knew that 3 human colonies were being built in nearby star systems, with thousands of people who had no idea aliens existed. Lisa, record everything and send it to Luna Command immediately. Make sure they know about the colonies in this sector. As Lisa worked frantically at her station, the alien ship suddenly fired a bright beam of energy. They expected to feel the impact, but instead watched in horror as the beam struck an unmanned research station orbiting a nearby planet. The station, which had been collecting scientific data for 2 years, simply vanished in a flash of light. The alien voice returned, now sounding pleased with itself. That was a demonstration of NIM power. Your research facility has been eliminated to show you the consequences of defiance. Now you understand that we are serious. Surrender your vessel immediately, or your ship will share the same fate. Stared at the empty space where the research station had been. 12 years of scientific data and expensive equipment had been destroyed in seconds, just to make a point. These aliens weren't interested in peace or cooperation. They were conquerors who saw humanity as nothing more than another species to dominate. Message sent to Luna Command, Lisa reported quietly. Jake straightened his shoulders and spoke into the communications system with a steady voice. We cannot surrender our ship or our people. We are representatives of humanity, and we will not submit to threats or intimidation. If you wish to communicate further, we are willing to talk. We will be leaving this system. The aliens' laughter came through the speakers like the sound of breaking glass. Foolish humans. You think you have a choice in this matter? The NIGMA Empire spans 3,000 star systems and has conquered 47 different species. Your tiny civilization cannot resist us. We give you 72 of your hours to evacuate all humans from this sector of space. After that time, any human presence will be considered an act of war and will be eliminated. The communication ended, and the alien ship turned away from the Defiant. It accelerated quickly and disappeared into hyperspace, leaving Jake and his crew alone among the stars. Lisa looked at Jake with worry in her eyes. What do we do now, Captain? Do the one. I come to space looking for new homes. He thought about Earth, with its billions of people who had no idea their species had just been threatened with extinction. We go home, he said quietly. We tell them what happened here. The Defiant turned toward Earth, carrying news that would change everything humanity thought it knew about the universe. Admiral Ryan Clark read the report from Captain Morrison for the 3rd time. The words on the screen seemed impossible to believe, but the sensor data and recordings proved everything was real. Humanity had finally met another intelligent species, and they wanted to destroy every human in the galaxy. Ryan sat in his office at Luna Command. Looking out at the busy space station orbiting Earth's moon, hundreds of ships moved between the docking bays, carrying supplies and people to the growing human colonies. None of them knew that their entire civilization had just been threatened with extinction. President Matthew Kane arrived at Luna Command 6 hours after receiving the emergency report. He was a tall man with gray hair who had led humanity through many difficult times. Now he faced the biggest crisis in human history. How much time do we have? President Kane asked as he entered the secure briefing room. The aliens gave us 72 hours to evacuate all our people from that sector, Ryan replied. But I don't think they plan to stop there. They called us an inferior species and said resistance wasn't permitted. Dr. Helen Wright, Earth's top expert on alien life, studied the recorded conversation between Morrison and the NIGMA Empire. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had spent her career preparing for this moment. "They're following a pattern," she said, pointing to her analysis on the main screen. "I've been studying their language and behavior. The NIGMA Empire has done this before many times. They find a new species, demand surrender, and then either enslave them or wipe them out completely." President Kane looked tired. "How many species have they conquered, according to their own communications? 47 different civilizations? Some submitted peacefully and became slave races. Others tried to fight and were destroyed." Helen paused and looked directly at the president. "Sir, they've never encountered serious resistance. Every species they've met has been weaker than them." Ryan stood up and activated a holographic display showing human space. Red dots marked the locations of all 23 human colonies, scattered across 17 star systems. Blue lines showed the major shipping routes that connected them to Earth. "We can't evacuate everyone in 72 hours, Ryan said. "Even if we used every ship we have, it would take months to move all the colonists. And where would we put them? Earth is already crowded." President Kane studied the display for several minutes. "What are our military options?" "Limited," Ryan admitted. "We have patrol ships and defensive platforms around major colonies, but nothing designed for real warfare. The Colonial Defense Force has about 200 ships total, mostly small patrol vessels. And they have how many ships?" Helen answered from her analysis station. "Based on their communications, the NIGMA Empire controls 3,000 star systems. That suggests they have tens of thousands of warships, maybe more." The room fell silent as everyone realized the size of the threat they faced. President Kane walked to the window and looked out at the peaceful scene of ships moving between the space station's docking bays. "I want to try diplomacy first," he said finally. "Maybe we can reason with them." 3 days later, Ambassador Richard Stone prepared for the most important diplomatic mission in human history. His ship, the UHS Peacekeeper, was humanity's finest diplomatic vessel. It's designed to impress other civilizations with human culture and technology. Richard was an experienced diplomat who had negotiated treaties between human colonies and settled disputes that could have led to war. He was calm under pressure and believed that any problem could be solved through careful conversation. Colonel Amy Foster joined the mission as military observer. She was a tough woman who had served in the Colonial Defense Force for 20 years. Her job was to assess NIM military capabilities and report back to Luna Command. Dr. Ben Carter, humanities expert on alien cultures, completed the diplomatic team. It spent years studying the remains of dead civilizations, trying to understand how different species thought and acted. Now he would meet living aliens for the first time. The 3 ships of the diplomatic fleet traveled to the Vega system, where NIGMA Empire communications had told them to come. When they arrived, they found a massive alien vessel waiting for them. The NIGMA ship was called the Sovereign's Fist, and it was the largest thing any human had ever seen in space. It was over 2 kilometers long, with a hull that seemed to be made from black metal. Weapon ports covered its surface like the eyes of some giant predator. "My God," whispered Colonel Foster, staring at the alien ship through the viewing window. "How do we fight something like that?" Ambassador Stone remained calm, but Richard could see the concern in his eyes. The NIGMA ship was not just larger than their vessels, it was larger than most human space stations. A communication came from the alien ship, and the same harsh voice they had heard in Morrison's recording spoke to them. "Human diplomatic vessel, you will dock with our ship immediately. Your ambassador will present himself to Emperor Vextal and deliver your species' surrender." Richard activated the communication system. "This is Ambassador Richard Stone, representing the United Human Systems. We come to discuss peaceful coexistence. Between our civilizations, there will be no discussion. We'll surrender or be destroyed. These are the only choices the NIGMA Empire offers to inferior species." The human ships approached the massive alien vessel carefully. A docking bay opened in the side of the Sovereign's Fist, and the Peacekeeper was guided inside. Richard, Amy, and Ben found themselves in a huge chamber that could have held 50 human ships. Emperor Vextel was waiting for them in what appeared to be a throne room. He was nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like natural armor. His eyes were cold and showed no emotion as he looked down at the three humans. "So these are the creatures that dare to defy the NIGMA Empire," he said in perfect English. "You are even smaller and weaker than our intelligence suggested." Ambassador Stone stepped forward and bowed politely. "Your Excellency, we come seeking peace between our peoples. Humanity wishes to coexist with the NIGMA Empire and share the galaxy in friendship." Vextel laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "Friendship? You misunderstand your situation completely. The NIGMA Empire does not have friends. We have subjects and enemies. You will choose which one you prefer to be," Richard kept, his voice steady. "If we cannot be friends, perhaps we can simply avoid each other. Human space is small, and the galaxy is large. Surely there is room for both our civilizations?" "Human space belongs to the NIGMA Empire now," Vexthal replied. "Your colonies will be evacuated or destroyed. Your people will serve the Empire, or join the other extinct species we have encountered." Dr. Carter stepped forward. "Your Excellency, we have studied the remains of many civilizations. Every intelligent species has something valuable to offer. Humans are creative and adaptable. We could be useful to your empire." As Vexthal gestured with one of his forearms, and guards brought in a small device. He pressed a button, and a holographic display showed a nearby moon. "Watch carefully, humans. This is what happens to those who waste our time with useless words." A beam of energy shot from the Sovereign's fist and struck the moon. The entire celestial body cracked apart and turned into floating rocks within seconds. "Your research stations, your colonies, your homeworld, all can be destroyed just as easily," Vexthal said with satisfaction. "Now you see the power of the NIGMA Empire." Ambassador Stone looked at the destroyed moon and felt his heart sink. How could humanity fight against weapons that could destroy entire worlds? But he had come here with a mission, and he would complete it no matter what happened. "Your Excellency," Richard said in a clear, strong voice, "I have a message from the government of Earth and all human colonies." Vexthal waved dismissively. "I deliver your surrender terms quickly. My patience grows thin." Richard straightened his shoulders and looked directly into the alien emperor's cold eyes. "We give you this warning. Leave human space immediately and never return. Stop all hostile actions against human beings. If you refuse, the consequences will be unfortunate for both our species." The throne room fell completely silent. Then Vexthal began to laugh again, louder than before. "A warning from you? Raise their weapons who raise their weapons? Perhaps you need another demonstration of reality." Richard, Amy, and Ben were escorted back to their ships under armed guard. As the peacekeeper undocked from the alien vessel, Vextal's voice followed them. "You have 72 hours to begin evacuating your colonies. After that, we will remove you ourselves. NIGMA Empire has spoken." The human diplomatic fleet returned to Earth, carrying news that would change everything. President Kane stood in the secure conference room deep beneath Luna Command, looking at the faces of people who had been waiting their entire careers for this moment. The room was filled with men and women that most humans had never heard of, but they were about to save humanity from extinction. General Patricia Hayes was the first to speak. She was a serious woman with short gray hair who rarely smiled. For 30 years, she had been in charge of something called the Terra Defense Initiative, a project so secret that only 12 people in the government knew it existed. "Mr. President, Protocol 7 has been activated," she said in a calm voice.
"Ow."
"All hidden facilities are coming online and our people are moving to their positions." President Kane nodded. He had known about Protocol 7 since the day he took office, but he had hoped he would never need to use it. Now humanity's survival depended on secrets that had been kept for over 200 years. Dr. Sandra Lee sat at the far end of the table, surrounded by computer screens and technical displays. She was the head of something called the Prometheus Research Division, and her work had been classified at the highest levels for decades. "The weapon systems are ready, Mr. President," she reported. "We've been testing them in secret for 20 years. The NIGMA Empire has no idea what they're about to face." Admiral Chris Powell joined the meeting by secure video link from a location that officially did not exist. He was the commander of the Ghost Fleet, and his ships had been hidden in empty star systems for generations. waiting for this day. Sir, I have 3,000 ships ready for combat, he said. My crews have been training their entire lives for this mission. They know what needs to be done. President Kane looked around the room at these people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. Tell me everything. I need to understand what we're really capable of. General Hayes activated a holographic display that showed the true scope of human military power. The map revealed hundreds of hidden bases, secret shipyards, and weapon facilities scattered across dozens of star systems. After the wars of the 21st and 22nd centuries, our leaders made a decision, she explained. Humanity would never again be caught unprepared for an existential threat. While we appeared to be peaceful explorers and traders, we were actually building the most advanced military force in our part of the galaxy. The display zoomed in on a star system that appeared empty on all official maps. But the secret sensors showed massive structures hidden in the asteroid fields and behind the system's gas giant. This is Facility Omega, General Hayes continued. We've been building warships here for over a century. The public thinks our biggest ships are exploration vessels like the Defiant. They have no idea we have battlecruisers that can destroy entire fleets. Lieutenant Commander Scott Mitchell appeared on another video screen. He was young for his rank, but his eyes showed the intensity of someone who had trained for war his entire life. Sir, the Sword of Damocles network is fully operational, he reported. We have weapons platforms positioned throughout human space and beyond. Some of them have been waiting in position for 50 years. President Kane was amazed. How many people know about all this, including everyone in this room? About 12,000, General Hayes replied. They're all volunteers who gave up normal lives to protect humanity. Most of their own families think they work in asteroid mining or deep space research. Dr. Lee brought up technical displays showing weapons that seemed impossible. We've had our best scientists working on advanced technology for generations. While other species focused on conquering territory, we focused on creating better ways to defend ourselves. She pointed to a device that looked like a simple metal sphere, quantum destabilizers. They can tear apart the bonds that hold matter. Together, one of these can destroy a ship the size of the NIGMA vessel that threatened our diplomats. Another display showed swarms of tiny machines, nanite clouds. They can eat through any metal or composite material we've encountered. Release them near an enemy fleet, and the ships simply fall apart. Captain Kelly Davis joined the meeting from her ship, the UHS Vengeance. Unlike the exploration vessels that everyone knew about, her ship was built for only one purpose: total warfare. Mr. President, my ship alone has more firepower than the entire Colonial Defense Force, she said. And we have hundreds of ships like mine hidden throughout the galaxy. Admiral Powell's image became clearer as his ship moved closer to the meeting point. Sir, the Ghost Fleet represents humanity's true military philosophy. We learned from history that the best way to prevent war is to be so well prepared for it that your enemies never dare to attack. But the NIGMA Empire already attacked, President Kane pointed out. They attacked what they thought was our entire civilization. Admiral Powell replied with a cold smile. They have no idea that everything they've seen so far is just our civilian population. They haven't met our military yet. General Hayes brought up a new display showing the NIM Empire's territory. Red dots marked their major military bases and fleet positions. Blue lines showed attack routes that human forces had been planning for decades. We've been studying potential threats for over 2 centuries, she explained. Our deep space monitoring stations have been watching the NIGMA Empire since before they knew we existed. We know the location of every important military facility they have. Dr. Lee stood up and walked to the main display. The NIGMA Empire's greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. They're spread across 3,000 star systems, which means they can't concentrate their forces quickly. Our war plan takes advantage of that. She pointed to dozens of star systems throughout NIGMA space. We'll hit them everywhere at once. While they're trying to figure out what's happening in one system, we'll be destroying their bases in 20 others. Captain Davis looked directly at President Kane through the video link. Sir, my crews have been studying NIGMA tactics and technology since the first contact. We know how their ships work, how their weapons function, and how their commanders think. They have advantages in numbers and individual ship size, but we have advantages they can't imagine. Such as, President Kane asked, speed, stealth, and weapons they've never seen before, Admiral Powell answered. Our ships can appear anywhere in their territory within hours using technology they don't know exists, can attack their fleets with weapons that ignore their shields and armor. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell brought up another display. Sir, we also have something they've never encountered before, artificial intelligence systems designed specifically for warfare. Our AS can coordinate attacks across hundreds of star systems simultaneously while jamming their communications and disrupting their computer networks. President Kane absorbed all this information. The people in this room had been preparing for exactly this situation for their entire lives. It built weapons, trained soldiers, and developed strategies that no other species in the galaxy knew about. What do you need from me? He asked. General Hayes answered immediately. To begin Operation Ragnarok, full deployment of all hidden assets, and implementation of the Total War Protocol. How long will it take? The NIGMA Empire gave us 72 hours to evacuate our colonies, Admiral Powell replied. We'll need about 6 hours to position our forces. After that, we can end their empire in less than a week. President Kane looked at each person in the room and on the video screens. These people had dedicated their lives to this moment, keeping humanity's greatest secrets and preparing for the day when their species faced extinction. The NIGMA Empire thinks humanity is weak because they've only seen our civilian population, he said finally. They want to find out what we're really capable of when threatened with extinction. He stood up and looked directly at General Hayes. Show them. Operation Ragnarok is authorized. Throughout human space, hidden bases began to power up, secret weapons came online, and the Ghost Fleet emerged from hiding. The NIGMA Empire had demanded humanity's surrender. Instead, they're about to discover why no intelligent species should ever threaten the human race with extinction. The first sign that something was wrong came when the NIGMA Empire's forward fleet simply disappeared. Commander Kiktar had been leading 50 warships toward the human colony on New Geneva when his sensors went blank. One moment his fleet was moving through space in perfect formation. The next moment he was alone in his command ship, surrounded by empty space where his vessels should have been. Communications, report, shouted to his bridge crew. No response from any ship in the fleet commander. They're just gone. Kiktar stared at his displays in confusion. In 300 years of conquest, the NIGMA Empire had never lost an entire fleet without firing a single shot. It was impossible. What Kiktar didn't know was that Commander Tony Rodriguez had been watching his fleet for 2 hours from his stealth ship, the UHS Shadow Strike. Tony's ship was invisible to NIGMA sensors, using technology that bent light and energy around the hull. Target acquisition complete, reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the weapons station. All 50 ships are locked. Tony looked at his crew of 12 specialists. Each person on his ship had trained for over 10 years for this moment. They knew exactly what needed to be done. Fire quantum torpedoes, all targets, the Shadow Strike. Launched 50 missiles that existed in multiple dimensions at the same time. The NIGMA ship's shields and armor were designed to stop normal weapons. The quantum torpedoes phased through solid matter and exploded inside the enemy vessels. In less than 30 seconds, 49 NIGMA warships were torn apart from the inside. Only Kiktar's command ship survived because Tony wanted someone to report what had happened. Send a message to their commander. Tony ordered. Sarah opened a communication channel to the surviving NIMA ship. NIMA vessel, this is the United Human Systems. Your empire was warned to leave human space. You chose not to listen. Commander Kiktar's voice came through the speakers, filled with panic and confusion. What weapons are these? How did you destroy my entire fleet? The same weapons that will destroy your empire if you don't surrender immediately, Tony replied. You have 1 hour to contact your leaders and withdraw all NIM forces from human territory. The communication ended, and Tony's ship disappeared back into stealth mode. Commander Kiktar was left alone with the floating wreckage of his fleet. Trying to understand how humans had developed such impossible technology, Captain. Maria Santos was having an even more successful day. Her ship, the UHS Retribution, was defending the human colony on New Geneva when 3 NIGMA battlecruisers arrived to destroy the planet. The enemy ships were massive, each one over a kilometer long and armed with enough weapons to turn a planet's surface into glass. They immediately began charging their orbital bombardment systems. "This is Emperor Zexkull of the NIGMA Third Fleet," came the transmission. "Human colony, you have refused to evacuate as ordered. Your planet will now be destroyed as an example." 2 other defiant species. Maria smiled as she watched the enemy ships position themselves in orbit. They had no idea what was waiting for them. "Activate the planetary defense grid," she ordered, deep beneath New Geneva's surface. Massive gravitational generators came online. These machines had been built in secret during the colony's construction, disguised as mining equipment and power plants. The first NIGMA ship fired its bombardment beam at the planet's capital city. But instead of destroying buildings, the energy weapon was caught by an artificial gravity field and redirected back at the attacking ship. Emperor Zexkull watched in shock as his own weapon beam curved through space and struck his flagship. Massive battlecruiser was torn apart by its own bombardment system. "Impossible," he screamed. "How can a primitive colony deflect our weapons?" The other 2 NIGMA ships tried to retreat, but the gravity generators created a massive well that trapped them in orbit. The artificial gravity field grew stronger and stronger until both ships were crushed into metal spheres. The size of small buildings, Maria opened a communication channel to any surviving NIGMA forces in the area. "This is Captain Santos of the US Retribution. New Geneva is under the protection of the United Human Systems. Any attempt to attack this world will result in your immediate destruction." Across NIGMA space, similar scenes were playing out as humanity revealed its true military capabilities. Colonel Derek Johnson led the Phantom Corps. Elite soldiers equipped with personal shield generators and weapons that fired concentrated dark matter. Derek and his team of 50 soldiers boarded a NIMO command ship using dimensional rifts that allowed them to appear inside enemy vessels without using docking bays or airlocks. The NIGMA crew had no warning before human soldiers simply materialized on their bridge. "Surrender your ship immediately," Derek ordered, pointing his dark matter rifle at the NIGMA captain. Captain Voxel reached for his sidearm, but Derek's weapon fired first. The dark matter beam passed through the alien's natural armor, like it was paper, and left nothing behind but empty space where the captain had been standing. "Anyone else want to resist?" Narek asked the remaining bridge crew. The NIGMA officers quickly raised their hands in surrender. Within 20 minutes, Derek's team had taken control of the entire ship without damaging any important systems. This was happening throughout the galaxy as human forces used dimensional technology to board and capture NIGMA vessels. The aliens had never encountered enemies who could appear inside their ships without warning. Admiral Powell was coordinating the largest military operation in human history from his flagship, the UHS Eternal Vigil. His holographic display showed human forces attacking NIMA positions in over 200 star systems simultaneously. "Status report," he ordered. "Ghostfleet Alpha has destroyed the NIGMA shipyards in the Rigel sector," reported his operations officer. "Ghostfleet Beta has captured 3 NIGMA supply depots. Ghostfleet Gamma has eliminated the enemy's communication network in the Vega region." Powell nodded with satisfaction. The plan was working perfectly. While the NIGMA Empire tried to coordinate a defense across their vast territory, human forces were systematically destroying their military infrastructure. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Emperor Vextal himself," his communications officer announced. Powell smiled. The same alien leader who had laughed at humanity's warning was now trying to contact them. "Put him through." Emperor Vextal's image appeared on the main screen. The proud alien warrior who had destroyed a moon to intimidate human diplomats now looked frightened and confused. "Human Commander, I demand to know what weapons you are using against the NIGMA Empire. Your technology should not be capable of such destruction." Powell stood up and looked directly at the alien emperor. "Your Excellency, humanity gave you a clear warning. We told you the consequences would be unfortunate if you refused to leave our space. You chose to ignore that warning. It is impossible, Vexel shouted. We have conquered 47 species. None of them had weapons like yours.
Us.
Species weren't human, Powell replied calmly. You made the mistake of thinking we were like the other civilizations you had encountered. We're not. Dr. Sandra Lee's nanite swarms were proving especially effective against NIGMA technology. The microscopic machines could eat through any material the aliens used in their ships and stations. Entire NIGMA fleets were falling apart as the nanites consumed their hulls. Weapons. An engine Lieutenant Commander Scott Mitchell was using the Sword of Damocles network to devastating effect. Weapons platforms that had been hidden throughout space for decades were now revealing themselves and attacking NIGMA forces with precision strikes. Sir, NIGMA resistance is collapsing across all fronts, he reported to Admiral Powell. Their command structure is breaking down, and their fleet commanders are either dead, captured, or retreating in panic. Powell studied the tactical display. In less than 18 hours, humanity had crippled the military might of an empire that had ruled 3,000 star systems for over a millennium. Begin Phase 2, he ordered. Target all NIGMA government facilities and military academies. I want their ability to wage war permanently destroyed. Captain Kelly Davis and her battle group were approaching the NIGMA, Empire's primary military headquarters in the Arcturus system. The base was protected by orbital fortresses and defended by over 300 warships. All ships, this is Captain Davis. Begin the final assault. Human ships appeared throughout the Arcturus system using wormhole generators. Unlike the slow approach that most species used in space combat, humanity could position their forces anywhere they wanted in seconds. The NIGMA defenders tried to respond, but their weapons couldn't lock onto targets that kept disappearing and reappearing in different locations. Human ships would fire their weapons, vanish through wormholes, and then appear somewhere else to attack again. Within 4 hours, the most heavily defended system in NIGMA space had fallen to human forces. The empire that had seemed invincible just days ago was collapsing faster than anyone thought possible. Emperor Bextel sent out a desperate message to all NIGMA forces. Retreat to the homeworld. Abandon all forward positions. The humans have weapons we cannot fight. But it was too late. Admiral Powell's forces were already moving toward the NIGMA homeworld, and nothing in the galaxy could stop them now. 3 months after the war began, Emperor Vextel stood in the ruins of his palace on the NIGMA homeworld. The great throne room where he had once laughed at human diplomats was now filled with smoke and broken stone through the shattered windows. He could see human ships in orbit around his planet. Admiral Powell's flagship, the UHS Eternal Vigil, hung in the sky like a metal moon. It was smaller than the massive NIGMA vessels, but Vextel now knew that size meant nothing. The humans had weapons that could destroy anything the Empire had built. Your Excellency, said General Lockmar, the last surviving NIGMA military commander, the humans are requesting your presence aboard their ship. They say they want to discuss surrender terms. Vextel closed his 4 eyes and tried to understand how everything had gone so wrong. Just months ago, he had commanded the greatest military force in the galaxy. Now his empire was gone, his fleets were destroyed, and his people were hiding in caves and underground shelters. How many ships do we have left? He asked quietly. None, Your Excellency. The last battle group was destroyed yesterday near the Centauri border. Our shipyards, our weapons factories, our training academies, everything is gone. Vextel nodded slowly. He had learned too late that humans were nothing like the other species his empire had conquered. While other civilizations had fought with honor and courage, they had all used predictable tactics and familiar weapons. Humans fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiant, watching the final NIGMA surrender. His ship was the same exploration vessel that had first encountered the alien empire, but now it was part of the largest human fleet ever assembled. Hard to believe it's over, said Commander Lisa Park, joining Jake at the viewing window. Jake nodded as he watched NIGMA civilians emerging from their hiding places. Unlike their military leaders, these people looked tired and afraid. Many of them were carrying white flags or other symbols of surrender. Admiral Powell was right, Jake said. They never expected to meet a species that could fight back effectively. Dr. Helen Wright was working with human soldiers to establish refugee camps on the NIGMA homeworld. Her job was to help the surviving aliens adjust to life without their warrior empire. It was difficult work because the NIGMA had never learned to live peacefully. Most of their society was built around conquest and domination, she explained to the camp administrators. Now they need to learn completely new ways of thinking and living. It will take years, maybe generations. The camps were not prisons, but places where NIGMA civilians could get food, medical care, and education. Human teachers were already working to help young NIGMA learn about cooperation and peaceful problem-solving instead of warfare and conquest. President Kane arrived at the NIGMA homeworld aboard his personal ship to witness the final surrender ceremony. He had insisted on coming personally because this moment would be remembered throughout galactic history. Emperor Vextel was brought aboard the Eternal Vigil, under heavy guard. He looked much smaller now than he had in his throne room. His natural armor was cracked and scarred, and his forearms hung limply at his sides. Your Excellency, President Kane said as the former emperor entered the conference room, we could have met under better circumstances. Vextel stared at the human leader with confusion. You speak as if you regret what happened. Your species has just destroyed the greatest empire in galactic history. We regret that it was necessary. President Kane replied, Humanity never wanted this war. We offered you peace, and you chose destruction instead. Admiral Powell activated a holographic display that showed the current state of former NIGMA territory, where once there had been a mighty empire spanning 3,000 star systems. Now there were only scattered refugee camps and human relief stations. The NIGMA Empire no longer exists as a military or political entity, Admiral Powell announced formally. All NIGMA military assets have been destroyed or captured. All government facilities have been shut down. Your ability to wage war has been permanently eliminated. Vextel looked at the display and saw the complete destruction of everything his people had built over 1,000 years. What will happen to my people now? President Kane answered with surprising gentleness. They will learn to live without conquering others. Human administrators will help them build new communities based on cooperation instead of domination. Your species will survive, but your empire will not. Dr. Helen Wright had been studying NIGMA society throughout the war, and she presented her findings to the surrender ceremony. The NIGMA Empire conquered 47 different species over the centuries, she said. But they never learned anything from those civilizations except how to defeat them. They became so focused on military conquest that they stopped growing as a species. She brought up images of the other species that had been enslaved by the NIGMA Empire. Humanity has already begun freeing these enslaved peoples and helping them rebuild their own civilizations. The galaxy will be a much more peaceful place without the NIGMA Empire. Captain Maria Santos reported from the New Geneva colony, which had been one of the first targets of NIGMA aggression. Sir, all human colonies are secure and safe. The threat to our people has been completely eliminated. Commander Tony Rodriguez added his report from deep space. Our stealth fleets have confirmed that no NIGMA military forces remain active anywhere in the galaxy. A few small groups are still hiding, but they have no ships, no weapons, and no ability to threaten anyone. Emperor Vextel signed the surrender documents with shaking hands. The papers officially ended the NIGMA Empire and placed all former NIGMA territory under human administration until the alien civilians could learn to govern themselves peacefully. I have one question, Vextel said as he finished signing. Long have humans been preparing for this war? President Kane considered the question carefully. We've been preparing for a war like this since our species learned to think about the future. Humans have always known that someday we might face an enemy that wanted to destroy us completely. But your exploration ships, your peaceful colonies, your diplomatic missions, all of that was real. Of course it was real, President Kane replied. Humans genuinely prefer peace and cooperation. But we learned long ago that hoping for peace is not enough. We had to be prepared for war while working toward peace. Admiral Powell stood up and looked directly at the former emperor. Your empire made the same mistake that many others have made throughout history. You saw our peaceful nature and assumed it meant we were weak. You confused kindness with weakness, and exploration with inability to fight. The species you conquered before were probably just as brave as humans, President Kane added, but they weren't prepared for your level of aggression. We were prepared because we've learned from our own history and the history of others. Dr. Wright presented her final report on the war's outcome. The NIGMA Empire threatened humanity with extinction, but they've ended up extinct themselves, at least as a military force. Their people will survive and hopefully learn to live better lives. But their empire and their ability to threaten others is gone forever. Colonel Derek Johnson, who had led the boarding actions against NIGMA ships, made the final military report. All human forces are returning to their hidden bases. The Ghost Fleet will remain ready in case other threats emerge, but for now, human space is secure. Captain Jake Morrison returned to his original mission aboard the UHS Defiant. As his ship left the former NIGMA homeworld, he thought about everything that had happened since that first encounter months ago. Lisa, he said to Commander Park, do you think other alien species will try to threaten us after seeing what happened to the NIGMA Empire? Lisa smiled as she looked out at the peaceful stars. I think the galaxy has learned an important lesson. Humans will always offer friendship and cooperation to those who want peace. But anyone who threatens us with extinction will discover that we're very good at keeping our promises. The UHS Defiant resumed its exploration mission, searching for new worlds and new civilizations among the stars. But now the galaxy knew the truth about humanity. They were peaceful explorers who preferred diplomacy and science. But they were also the species that had given the mighty NIGMA Empire a warning and then made good on their promise when that warning was ignored. The message was clear to every civilization in the galaxy: humans wanted to be friends. But they were definitely not the species you wanted as enemies. And in the hidden bases throughout human space, Admiral Powell's Ghost Fleet quietly returned to its long watch, ready to defend humanity against any future threat that might emerge from the vast darkness between the stars.